I grew up in Nova Scotia. Out west here, they had better and harder drugs. I met my wife at a batting cage. And of course, I was partying at the time, and she turned out to be a partier also. Of course, she got pregnant, so I ended up marrying her, and we kept using for a lot of years together. It wasn't fun. We get to using, we get self-centered, blaming each other and fighting. Someone had suggested we go see this addiction doctor, and we did. And he was trying to get her off a lot of the pills. As they were weaning her off, she wanted to keep the effect of the pills going, so she stopped the eating. And then through all that, that's when she ended up in the hospital. So I actually brought my son in, 7 years old, and he asked if his mom was going to die, and I had no idea what to say.
All right, what's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Brian McGrath. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Before we bring in Brian, I just want to remind our viewers and listeners to stay to the end for a powerful sneak peek at next week's guest, creator of the Sobriety and Fitness Instagram account and person in long-term recovery, Mike Devine from Ottawa, Ontario. You can tap the featured link at the bottom of your screen or in the overview at any time to set a reminder for next week's show. Let's bring in Brian. How are you, Brian?
Doing well, Daniel. Thanks for having me here.
No problem.
Shout out to everybody.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, man. We had some good laughs before the show, and we had Shaw Cable. We had a cameraman from Shaw Cable in here during the countdown they're doing a mini doc on us. So that's kind of cool.
That's fair. So I'm going to be all over the place now.
You will, yes, all over the place. Yes, you can piggyback on our infamy.
There we go.
Yeah,
right on.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
Nah, I really appreciate being asked to come on and share my story, and everybody showing up. This is very cool. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's jump in.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Okay, before we dive in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is premier sponsored by Prairie Sky Recovery Center in Leipzig, Saskatchewan, and we're going to learn a bit more about them in just a little while. But first, let's talk to Brian some more. And you're back.
I'm back.
So we learned a little bit about you in the intro there, but I'm sure there's lots more. So why don't we start at the beginning? Before you moved out west here, you lived out east. Tell us what that was like growing up.
Yeah, I lived in a small town, Glasgow, Nova Scotia, and grew up in there, started using at a very young age. Probably, I'm taking a guess, 12, 13. Not sure. I know it was grade 7, so however old I was back then.
Was there a lot of that at home?
Oh, there's a lot of that going on, yeah. I mean, truthfully, in a small town, there's not a whole lot to do. You play baseball in the summer, hockey in the winter, and then in between everything, party and have fun with each other. Yeah.
Here's a question.
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on.
So now that you've been in recovery for a number of years and you had to go back to a small town, what would you do instead of drinking and partying?
Oh, now there's so much. Fishing, snowmobiling, cross country, like just so much to do.
The reason I ask is because there was one episode some time ago, and I bring this up every time this comes up. And look at Donna's she's already laughing over there. We had our friend and fellow podcaster on, Todd Renenbaum from Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, another good podcast. Maybe we should connect you with. And he was like, "Oh, there was nothing to do in the small town I was in." And Donna's like, "Yeah, that's bullshit." And she totally. She's like, "I lived in Saskatoon and we did the exact same thing. So don't even, Todd."
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, so you grew up around a lot of it. Tell us about the first time you got loaded. Like, were you like, I can't wait to get high, or did it just sort of fall in your lap, or what was it like?
Well, yeah, what happened was, and I was thinking about this just before we come on tonight. I remember there was a dance at this local rec center right down the street from me. And I was, like I say, I was in grade 6, grade 7. and there were some older guys in the graveyard drinking before they go to the dance.
Mm.
And I happened to be walking through the graveyard. There's a little path there we all walked through. And they hollered to me, and I just went over, and they had a little, I don't know, it was rum, vodka, whatever it was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they handed it to me and asked me to take a swig, and I did. Like, no mix, no nothing. And they all patted me on the back. So right then it felt like, oh, the big guys like me.
This is how I fit in.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it like? What was it like when it kicked in? Was it like a warm blanket?
Yeah, like, and I still, you start talking about it, like, remember it hitting the gut and the real warm feeling. And of course, you get that taste in the back of the throat. And the taste wasn't that good, but it was like, okay, but you still had that warm feeling in the gut. And it was like, and then everybody patting you on the back and saying, hey, way to go, drink like a man, and all that other stuff. And you're one of the boys now. And yeah, so it was like, it was fitting in. It was just fitting in. Yeah, and that's the only way I knew how to fit in.
So it wasn't even about the feeling. Like, did it relieve any of your anxiety? Like, did you, like, because like a lot of people say, and I've heard this quite a bit, is like, I didn't know I had anxiety. I didn't know I had these intense feelings until I took a drink and it went away.
No, for me it was it was being stupid. I believed I was stupid right up until my 30s. Like, even after a little while after I cleaned up, because all through school I was told that. So at this point, I wasn't stupid. I fit in, and it took away the stupid feeling, I guess. Yeah. And it was like, no, I'm here. Someone's accepting me, and so here we go. Yeah.
So were you all in? You were all in after that?
After that, I was pretty well all in. Yeah. Every chance. Yeah. Yeah. So every chance we got.
How come you moved?
Well, in Nova Scotia, I met a girl, and same thing. We partied together. She got pregnant. Well, I have a son back in Nova Scotia, and there was a bunch of things going on with her and I, and I always told my buddies, I got to get the hell out of here sometime. Just go explore some of the world. And I thought maybe if I leave, I might actually clean up or sober up or do something with my life.
Hang on now. So at this point, how old were you?
I think it was either 20 or 21.
And at this time, you were already thinking like, man, I gotta, like, if I move, maybe I can live a better life. So you already realized that this was problematic at that time.
Oh, I know it was problematic at the age of 16.
Okay. What was your first indication? Like how, like, what did that feel like the first time you're like, man, this ain't good?
I kind of get the feeling now. It was like, how do I not do this? Like the feeling was like, I'm not smart. I'm stupid. No one really accepts me except for the group of guys I'm hanging out with, all my buddies and that. I wanted to try and make something better in my life, but I had no idea how to do it. And of course the school and the teachers and everything that I was in, they weren't of help back in that day. And it wasn't their fault. It was just the way things were. Yeah.
Did you tell anybody that, like, did you reach out to anyone at that time?
No. And one of the reasons that really made me notice it was, so we played ball hockey back there in the summertime. Ball hockey league started. And that's when I was 16. And so all my group of buddies got together and we made up these draft letters and handed them out to each other. And just as a joke and that. Well, the draft letter they gave to me was that they thought I should go to AA and start working on maybe sobering up before I start playing. And so they knew, and I kind of knew, but later on, yeah, I knew there was a real problem because most weekends, didn't remember too much of the weekend.
So did you go to AA? Did you try it before you moved out west?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, it was always in the back of my mind, but small town, you don't want to go and know someone.
Did you feel a sense of relief? Like when you packed your bags and the hometown was in the rear view mirror, like were you like, oh, thank God that's over? Like, did you think like that was the end of the chapter?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I figured like I'd get out west and I would grow up.
All this driving, it's going to mature me.
Yeah, but didn't happen.
How long did you find any sobriety at all, or was it just like right in as soon as you pulled up to the new place?
No, probably it got about maybe a month,
Mm. How was that month?
something like that. It was cool because I was at the gym. I didn't know anybody. My brother happened to live out here, but I didn't know anybody, and he had a family and everything. So I worked. I was a carpenter. I'd go to the gym, and then I found some trails to go hiking on, like just trying to do some exploring around. So it was different, yeah. And then of course, being a carpenter, I started hanging out with all the guys at work, and yeah, things went left.
So it's a social thing for you, because like that was like for me too. That was for me. Like I could go up north and I could work for like 3 weeks at a time. Like this was already when I was into it, but like I wouldn't use or drink or anything when I was up there, right? Because I would be able to get into my own place. And it sounds a little bit like what you went through. Is that accurate?
Sort of, yeah. Like if I didn't know too many people, and I was exploring around trying to find connection. Like I was usually good. I wasn't heavy into it. But the second I found connection, it was always with someone that used. And mainly because, as we always say, we attract what we're kind of looking for, what we do.
My mama always
and so
said,
the guys
my mama always said sparrows don't hang out with crows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I went to Whistler and worked up there for quite a while. And up there, you're 12, 16-hour day shifts. And so the guys would pull out a joint at lunchtime or at break time in the morning. Then, of course, we get into that. And one guy, him and I went out partying one night, and he brought out cocaine. And that's when I found cocaine.
Were you like hesitant at all, or were you just like, here we go?
No, I wasn't hesitant. The only thing I would never do, like to snort a line, it was all right because, I watched people do it. I thought, this is all right. But I would never use a needle, because if I used a needle, that meant I was a drug addict. So in my mind, right?
Yeah. Did you ever have the opportunity?
Yeah, once I did, and I didn't do it.
Hang on a sec. We got Dawn chiming in here.
I was just going to say, it's funny how that mentality exists, because I was like that too, for the longest time. But that was not the case. And I went down that path anyway. So,
yeah. Well, the old thing, you're not there yet. Yeah.
So tell us about your experience with that then. Like, was it the same as with alcohol? Like, you tried alcohol, you're all in. You tried marijuana, you're all in. Was it the same with cocaine? Like, did you just keep leveling up?
Well, cocaine really, how to say, it let me go a long time. Like, it was like this nice, cool, I was cool, and it was, I always felt kind of in control, so to speak. So I'd done it a fair amount for the first little while, yeah. Yeah, especially with the guys I hung out with, they done it. And then I got away from it for a little while because I came back down to the city and started working again. And so I got out of this scene up in Whistler, the big party scene and everything, and we'll come back down the city. And a few of the guys I hung out with down in the city didn't do cocaine. And so we, smoke dope, drink beer, drink whiskey, pop acid, stuff like that. And then I end up getting, renting a place, and my roommate was a logger. And he'd be in camp for a while and then come out of camp. And I'd walk up the street, and if there was a limousine outside my house, I thought, not going to work for the next 4 days.
A limousine?
Yeah, him and a few of the other guys would get out of camp, come down to the city,
and rent a
limousine.
limousine.
Get a limo, drive them around. Yeah, drive around, cocaine, and they'd scrub out the sinks, and they called it yucca flux. These guys were all from up Powell Riverway.
Yeah, we know
and
what that is in Saskatchewan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Donna's like, yeah, we know what that shit is.
Yeah, I never heard of it until I came here. Right on.
Yeah, right on. That's bad. What do you mean, right on? So okay.
Yeah,
so you worked up north, and different things. You know what? Let's take a break, actually. Let's take a break. Look at some comments. If you're just joining us now, make sure you stick around to the end. We've got a few very insightful words from next week's guest. So, and while you're there, if you see a link down in the description, you can tap that link, the featured link, or in the overview, and set a reminder for next week. Let's look at some comments. Let's see here. Boom, Donna's on the other side this week.
Surprise! So Elizabeth Sarah, thank you for your comment. She says, evening, everyone. I made 6 months today. Big, huge congratulations, girl.
Sober time in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool.
And Douglas Clark, thank you for your comment. Says, acceptance is key.
And we've got some question coming in from Heidi Sullivan.
Heidi Sullivan asks, did your parents figure it out that you were drinking at such a young age?
Oh, wow. So I never had a father. My father left when I was young. So I grew up with my mom and grandma raising us. My mom remarried when I was 13 years old. So my really younger years, I had no father influence. My mom was so busy trying to raise 3 kids, hold a job and a house and that no, she didn't think, she knew we did a little bit, but mom, as a lot of moms do, she lived in denial and she didn't want that to be her kids.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I cleaned up, it was still that, well, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah.
Did that
Right
bug
till,
you? Like, let's jump ahead for just a second here. Jump ahead in the story.
yeah, for sure.
When you got sober and your mom was like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." Like, did that bother you? Like, did you like cop her resentment over that?
No. I knew my mom I knew my mom lived in denial, and it was kind of humorous. I got one story. We're at my brother's one time. My mom and stepdad had come out, and there was this big fight one time when we were all back home, and people were being thrown in cop cars. It was at a dance, and they'd be dragged out. Anyway, my brother ended up in the paddy wagon, as we called it back then. He went to jail, and he went to court. And a couple of women from our town went to court and testified they grabbed the wrong guy. They didn't even see. It was the way our end of the town worked. So he got off. But anyway, we were talking about that out west here years and years later. And we're just sitting around the table in conversation. And my brother says, yeah, I says, do you remember the fight? And I kind of laughed. I said, yeah. I said, you got thrown in jail and you got off. And my mom turned around. She said, yeah, and you didn't do a damn thing. She said they got the wrong guy. So even till that day, like I was on the floor killing myself laughing. My brother was saying, that's right, Mom. I didn't do anything, right? Mm-hmm. So we knew it was Mom. Like I guess it was her way of really loving us. So yeah, she didn't want to think anything bad of us.
Well, and I can certainly relate, like our kids are younger. Like my oldest boy is 9, and it's just like, I don't want to think about him going down the road I did. And I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I was thinking like, man, I hope my lived experience, like I hope the experiences that he had walking alongside me, seeing what I went through and the times I got real mad and the times I didn't, maybe I didn't, whatever, like I hope that me going through this is enough for him to take a different path. But of course I'll support and love him, whatever.
Exactly.
So you worked in northern BC as a carpenter, correct?
Yeah. Just up in Whistler.
Yeah. And then you came back and you were working in Vancouver?
I worked in Vancouver. I worked all over the Lower Mainland. Mm-hmm. I'd be there. I went over to the island, worked over there for a while. Mm-hmm. Snuck across the border for a short period of time too, down in Seattle, and done a little bit of work down there.
Illegal alien you were.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about carpenter or any construction job is back then, I'm sure it's still the same today, is you could use and no one, you never got fired. You never, it was just part of the job.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was about to ask you. Like, did you ever lose jobs over it? Like, did it ever come to a place where you got so bad that they couldn't employ you?
One guy did. And about 3 weeks later, he called me back up and asked me to come back to work. And he said, but you can't party the way you used to. And I said, look, I said, if I do my work, you can't say a word. I said, I'll do what I want as long as I show up and do my work. You got to leave me alone. So he took me back on.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's a comment here that I just want to bring awareness to this one comment because it's a good one right here.
Yes, Donna, thank you for your comments. She says, I look forward to listening every week. I didn't drink alcohol yesterday or today. Congratulations, girl.
Two miracles in a row. Awesome. Well done, Donna. I know that wasn't, well, I guess it is really relevant to the conversation, although it didn't. Anyways, I thank you for sharing that, Donna. And thank you for reading it, Donna.
That's very cool.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So, what did your day of reckoning look like then? I mean, if you didn't lose your job, and now you were married, we haven't really talked about that too much yet. Now, you used for many years, you mentioned in the intro, you used for many years with your wife. You guys partied together and it got real dirty together. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? What was that like as you moved through your addiction, working up north, back in Vancouver, all over the place? How was your relationship?
The relationship, again, was really rocky. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. When you use together, yes. you fight a lot, you blame each other, we get self-centered, right? It's everybody else's fault, and if you just do this, I'd be all right. And
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all that self-centered thinking and bullshit that goes on in our head. And yeah. And I mean, one of mine was, you knew what I was like before we got married, and
yeah,
now
you're stuck with me.
Which is, yeah. So
what brought it to a head then? I mean, like I said, you did mention it a little bit. Your wife went into the hospital.
Yeah.
Tell us about you said someone said you should talk to an addictions professional, and you did. So what was that like? Who was it? Who said you guys need to talk to someone? And what was your reaction at first?
So we had met someone, my wife ended up in the hospital. This was the first time she ended up in the hospital. She wasn't doing too well. And there was a bunch of guys around. There was a guy there, and he happened to say that, he said, maybe you guys should talk to someone. Because he would talk to Jerry a little bit before I got there, because I was still kind of working and trying to hold things together. And he had mentioned that maybe go get some help. Now, this is the first time I thought, holy shit, like, I guess there was that little spark there. It was like, maybe this is it. Right? Because I knew for a lot of years, I just wanted to live a different life. I just didn't know how, no idea how to. And he said, maybe you want to go talk to this doctor. And he talked about meetings and everything. So we actually went to our first meeting too, in the hospital. They had one down in the basement. So we went to there, and I thought, oh, this wasn't, yeah, exactly. And then, so we ended up going to see the doctor, the addiction doctor. And the only thing was, so you go through it about 6 weeks for assessments and that. He usually didn't take couples, but this time he did. And he had talked about putting Jerry maybe into a recovery home or something.
Jerry's your wife?
And Jerry's my wife. And I said, no, you're not putting her in a freaking recovery home. He said, why not? I said, because someone got to be home to take care of the kids and make meals and while I'm at work. And, like, I'm not doing that by myself. She can't go somewhere. And so again, like, that's the self-centered shit that goes on with us.
That's not completely wrong though, either. At the same time, I mean, is it a good enough excuse? I would argue that, but that is definitely like a barrier. And as an addictions professional now yourself, that is a barrier, like it's tough for people to take a month off work. Like who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to take care of the kids and the dog and all the things? So,
absolutely
not completely insane to say that.
Yeah. No, but the one thing I did remember him saying, like, if she doesn't get in somewhere, she's got a really good chance to die. And I still didn't listen. I just thought, yeah, whatever. And I said, but she got to come home and do the meals and everything else. Which, honestly, my wife and I kind of laugh about it now. Is she didn't really do that stuff anyway. So
she was a terrible cook.
But through the partying that we just didn't do it. We usually grab takeout and stuff anyway. Like,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
okay, so you got this advice and you didn't take it. When did you take it? What happened?
Well, we'd see him a lot, and then I got in a fight with him one time in there, so I stopped going to see him.
Mm.
And but my wife had to keep going because they were weaning her off or pills. She popped a lot of pills, Ativan, all the stuff that we know about.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to wean her off them because she was using a lot, and along with other drugs too. So as he was taking her off, she couldn't go to any pharmacy to get them. She had to go to him. Somehow he got something out that any pharmacy wasn't allowed to give her anything. So she would go in to see him. And one time she drove in, and apparently she parked the car in the middle of the street. And this is in New Westminster, busy place. He was right across the street from the hospital, the Royal Columbian. She made it into his office, collapsed on the floor. They rushed her across to the hospital. I'm not sure all what happened there because I was at work. I didn't find out till later. And I went and seen her for a little bit that night. And then the next day I took my son in. Now we have a son and a daughter, but by that time my daughter had moved out. She was living with friends. Mm-hmm. And I took my son in. He was 7 years old. And when he's seen her, like when we went to leave, he said, "Dad, is Mom going to die?" And I couldn't say no. And I didn't want to say, like, I just had no idea. No. Ooh.
Yeah.
That still gets me every time. But anyway, 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And that's why I just kind of looked at him and said, "Look, you're going to get the life you deserve. You don't deserve this." Mm-hmm. And so there I just thought, I'm going to clean up. And still then though, in my mind it was, I'm going to clean up until he's old enough and he can take care of himself, and I can kind of go back to it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Let's take a break. Hear a word from tonight's sponsors.
Now that I've left Prairie Sky, I just feel free from my addiction. Treatment saved my life. Prairie Sky Recovery saved my life.
Okay, if you want to learn more about Prairie Sky Recovery Center, you can follow them here on Facebook to see everything they have to offer. They are tagged in the event overview of this video. So, much props to them, doing good work here in Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Nice.
So, now, was that the defining moment for you? Like, was that the moment that you put it down? I mean, you did mention that you were going to, you had every intention of picking it up again, but was that it for you?
That's the last time I ever picked anything up. Yeah. Yeah.
And how was it when you made that decision? Now, here's the thing. Did it feel, when you made that decision and it felt real, did a weight come off or did a weight go on?
A little bit of both. So one, it came off in the point that I knew it was the right thing to do because we had a family, and again,
everybody
our
feels
kids
like that for the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it lasted a while, but then I got crazy insane in my head. Like it just, because my wife ended up back in the hospital again. Like she had a rough time coming off the pills and that, and I was still trying to work and hold things together and do all this shit. And like, I was going out of my mind half the time, and I really want to use just to get rid of that, the talk in my head, because there were so many voices up there. And it sucked. It really sucked.
And had your wife entered recovery then now too?
No, not at this point. So I cleaned up about 6 months later, she did. Because she was still struggling. They were still taking her off the pills. And of course, she'd still use here and there to try and keep the effects of stuff going.
Try to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's all any of us really want. We just want to be okay.
Yeah. And my wife always, like, it was really cool because at meetings, my wife would, and she got it from someone else, as we all do, but she'd say, an apple doesn't know how to be an orange. And I've been an apple for so long. How do I become an orange? And it's so true. It's like, how the hell do we do this? Like, most of my life I used in order to cope with anything. Insecurity, use, me and her fighting, use. celebration. It's a happy
I was just
time.
going to say, her and you had a good time.
Yeah.
Got to use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Never a bad reason. Never a bad reason.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So you mentioned meetings.
Yeah.
Did you jump into meetings right away? Was that like the place that you ran for cover?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I jumped into meetings, really got hooked into them. Because I worked a lot, because behind in bills, we had a house, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on, about to lose everything. So I had to work a lot. But I had met a guy and he'd say, you got to meet me at a meeting. And I said, well, I'm working too much. He'd say, pull in the parking lot, fall asleep, and I'll wake you up before the meeting. And that's literally what I had to do a lot of times. Go to work. I'd have a friend where I was at to take care of my son until I got home, drive from work to the meeting, sleep in the parking lot for a half an hour, 45 minutes, because I was working so much. He'd wake me up, go in and do the, hour and a half meeting at that time, and then go home and go to sleep and do the day all over. Every day on the drive to work, I would talk to him. At lunchtime, I'd talk to him and then meet him at a meeting, because, again, the insanity, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. It's not just me, but the insanity in the freaking head.
The committee.
Yeah. Oh, I remember one night I got off for work. I went to see my wife in the hospital. And I went to a meeting and I thought, geez, I'm doing good. Like, it's really good. I left the meeting. On the drive home, the voices started in my head. And all I kept saying is, stop talking, stop talking. Like, and I was saying that in my head. By the time I pulled in my driveway, I'm yelling in my truck, like, shut the fuck up. Right? It was just insane. Yeah.
I call those red light thoughts. And I heard the term coined somewhere. I can't remember where, but now every time I say that, nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. I have to explain it. So I don't know where I heard it. Maybe I dreamed it. It's entirely possible. I've been having weird dreams lately. So, but it's those thoughts that, like you have, and hopefully I'm getting better at it, but like you'll have a thought and like, no, don't go there, because it'll put you down a rabbit hole. Yeah. Yeah. And in early recovery, I had like zero hope of staying out of the rabbit hole. It was just like, here we go again. Buckle up.
Exactly. Eh? Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't miss them days.
No. And those meetings, like, man, like they gave me somewhere to go. Like the program, I just went to an NA convention today, and I hadn't really been involved in one for a long time, like for a few years, and I used to be really heavy in the program, and I went today, and man, that was a fantastic experience. And I'm so glad I went. I was so nervous to go, because I'm like, I haven't been for a while, like, and I'm still all right, like I'm still like doing some recovery things, I go to the gym, and sometimes I go for walks, and I do the things that I think I need to do, but yeah. So anyways, tell us about your first year. Like, when did the rubber hit the road for you? Because like I know it certainly doesn't, like, right off the hop.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I got out of there. That was back in 98. And the first 6 months was really hard. The second 6 months, things started lighting up again, because my wife cleaned up, 6 months after I did. So life started getting good. Like, her and I were doing things together. We'd go to meetings. We'd go to my sponsor's place. He always had a house full of recovering people in there. So Christmas time was packed. Like, anybody who didn't have a place, or it was their first Christmas of not using, he said, come to my house, and his house was packed. And it was just so much fun. Yeah.
No, and because I remember some of the darkest times in my late in my recovery, or in my addiction, like Christmas, man, like, oof. Oh, that's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It really is. And the cool thing is, years later, my wife and I got to do that. We had a big house out in Chilliwack.
Beautiful.
And we go to meetings, and we told anybody, if you don't got a place to come, here's our address, come here for Christmas dinner. And we always had 20 plus people every year for Christmas. Like, it was so much fun again. Yeah.
It's like,
my son loved it.
Just like you're back in treatment again.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life as I did when I was in treatment. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. Well, I do kind of a little bit.
Right on.
Yeah. Let's look at some more comments. What do we got here? Douglas Clark.
Says the hardest thing, I found to do was to admit that I had a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, where are we? Alan Frank.
Frank, thanks for your comment. Says, interesting how powerful our denial can be despite the darkest of consequences.
Hmm.
Yep. Very good point.
Mm-hmm.
You know Alan? Brian?
I know Alan, yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Alan.
Hello, Brian's friend Alan. And we have Biscuits McVander Savage. Just rolls off the tongue. I just love that name.
Yeah. He says, I knew it was time to get clean and sober when I slapped Dwayne Johnson on the butt. I had hit rock bottom.
I was like, you did not. Pictures or it didn't happen.
And he'd like to also know, what was the moment of clarity that something had to change with you?
Was there one moment? Did we? I think we already talked about the moment. I think we did.
Yeah, well, my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Biscuits was here for that. So good. We answered it.
He's too busy slapping the rock's ass.
Yeah. And we are with our proactive information. Okay, we'll look at one more and then we'll get back to it here.
There was one that for some reason didn't come up through VMix, and I'd just like to point it out because we, drew attention to a couple other people's sober dates.
Okay.
But New View, Better You had commented that I believe today is 14 days. So good for you.
Awesome.
Super proud of you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And thanks for sharing time with us during that early time. Like I love that so much. Like people come here and they are early on, and like we're like, I like to think we're helping, talking about the drugs and shit. I don't know if we're helping. So yeah, let's look at Ryan's here. Oh, and before we read this next comment, if you just joined us now, there's a featured link at the bottom of the screen. You can tap that link and set a reminder for next week's show. You won't want to miss it. Stick around to the end for a sneak peek at a conversation we had with next week's guest. Donna, what does Ryan have to say? Oh, there's Kendra.
Ryan says, I always thought I could go back out. I'm better now. I once thought I had arrived. I thought I arrived and I graduated treatment. This disease is cunning, baffling, powerful. It's progressive. My darkest bottom was my first day back after a relapse. By the grace of God and my recovery family, I will have 2.5 years on 5/9. I will never arrive today. My recovery is everything.
Beautiful. Very well said.
Nice.
So,
one thing, just a comment you made about you hope you're helping people. I will say absolutely, because I know when I cleaned up, I've drove back and forth to work. It was usually an hour. And of course, back then we had cassettes and stuff. So
speaker tapes.
But I would exactly all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that helps. So I know what you're doing is very helpful for a lot of people. Like
very
helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to say that. I am interested though. So you said the first 6 months was rough. Obviously, part of that had to have been because your wife was still using. I'm not going to say this is all your wife's fault or anything like that. But what was it like when she made the change, when she made the decision? Were you like hesitant? Like, were you skeptical? Were you happy? Were you scared? What was that like when she said and came? Like, did she come to a meeting with you? Like, what did that look like that day?
Oh, she still went to meetings and everything using.
Oh. Well, good.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it was finally done, it was because there was a comment I made one time, and it wasn't to be mean or anything. It was just like, and I told her, I said, look, honey, me and Richie is his name. I said, we're going to go have a good life. I said, you can join us if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she made the decision, and I knew it was then. It was like, this is going to be cool. Like this, okay, here we go. We get to be a family. Mm-hmm. Our daughter, get her back in, and our son, and just get to live life, right? Mm-hmm. Get to go through life together. So it was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How was that's another thing that I like to talk about because we don't talk about it maybe enough. Recovering together. I mean, you go into those rooms and they say, don't get in a relationship for a year. And then they say, don't make any big changes for a year and everything. But you came into the room in a relationship and now she's walking alongside you in recovery. Like, did you stay out of each other's way? Like, were you good at that? Or were you always like, you need to call your sponsor?
No, we were pretty good at that. One of the things that we were told, and again, it was stay out of each other's program. But when we heard it, we were so new that we didn't know what it meant. So we literally thought that meant, so she went to different meetings than I did. So we just thought it was stay out of each other's program. Mm-hmm. So we didn't go to the same meetings for, like, once in a while, we might go to the same one, but most times she had her group I went to, and I had my group I went to. Mm-hmm. And it really worked. Mm-hmm. Because then she could complain about me, I could complain about her, because we still did that stuff.
Of course.
Right? There's no doubt. We still did that.
I never complain about Donna, ever.
Bullshit.
What I do know is that I love you. There.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. There.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So how did that go on? Like, did you work the steps? What did you do? Did you dive into service?
I got a sponsor. My first set of steps was the Novelco set. There was a group of us went through it.
I've never heard of that.
The Novelco?
Yeah, never heard of that.
That was an AA thing. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's Novelco. I've been through so many different sets of steps now.
I didn't know there was different flavors.
There's so many different kinds. Like,
really?
I got hooked up with a group of guys in recovery. We still do it. That once a year we get together and we try something new. Uh-huh. So in NA, we done the spiritual steps, NA, AA, Novelco. Like, there's so many different spiritual steps. Mm-hmm. And then just read books together too. I mean, there was one book we read that I really loved. It was How to Be a Better Husband, Father, and Friend. And it was a really cool book. Because here's one thing, a snippet of that book was, everybody prepares to go to work, but no one prepares to come home. And it showed us that. Yeah.
That is a fact that,
yes.
Wow.
Yep. Mic drop right there.
Yeah. Show's done. Can't get any better. Good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so true, right? Like, we never prepare to come home. We bring our shit home with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say that again. There's someone in the chat here. In fact, it's Biscuits. Asking the Velco or Novelco? Like, spell it out for us.
Novelco. Oh, I didn't even know how to spell it. There's so many years ago I did it. It's called, but actually, there's a guy I'm just sponsoring right now, and he's going through this Novelco series with a bunch of other guys. So it's Novelco.
In a, if you could sum it up quickly, what's the difference? Like, why? Help me understand. Like, between the Novelco steps and, like, well, no, but like, if we're looking at the big book, right? We got, the big book, you go through the steps, right? Now, Novelco, like, what's the difference? Like, why? Help me understand.
Well, a lot of it is different questions. So, like, if you go through the big book, we study the big book. If you go through the NA guide, like, there's freaking 50 to 60 questions.
69 questions in the first step. I was like, this is too much. And then I went to AA, and, like, I had the old timer walk me through the steps. I'm like, now that I can do. I was like, I ripped through those things in like a week.
Exactly. Well, one of the main reasons I did it is I went through the Novelco one time, and we're standing around talking in a group, and someone said something about the NA steps. And I said, oh, they suck. And my sponsor happened to be standing there, right? And my sponsor said, oh, they suck, do they? I said, yes. I said, Novelco's the best. And he said, oh, when did you do the NA steps? He said. I said, I didn't. Next week. Well, shut your mouth then. And he told me, he said, shut up. He said, don't shoot off about anything until you try them. So that's where it started. Advice. It was like, let's start trying. And everything I tried, there was always something in every set of steps that helped me. And every book I read. So it was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. And the group of guys I hang out with, there's 3 of us now. The couple of guys died, but there's 3 of us that still do it today. So every Thursday night I meet these guys, and we're going through. In Living Clean has a workbook to go with it now.
Oh, does it?
The In Living Clean book. Yeah. Yeah. So we found that, and we started going through it. Yeah.
And I just want to jump in real quick here that we had, where'd she go? Rebecca Nanette, thank you for commenting. She says that the Novelco is spelled Novalco.
Yeah.
There we go.
Brian.
Yeah.
There you go, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, we got some comments. Let's have a look. Let's see here. There you go.
Our friend Ellen says, I lied to my siblings when they confronted me. And they said they were going to take me to get drug tested on the Monday. The gig was up and I was so relieved the lie was exposed. Interesting, since a month before I had attempted to take my life in fear of being exposed. There is a universal power watching over me without me knowing it.
You ever had those thoughts, Brian? You ever thought it'd be better if you weren't around?
Yeah. Well, when my son was born back east and I didn't get to see him and there's a bunch of shit going on there, I had a knife to me one night. Yeah, absolutely. I had it part way in, but I just couldn't get it all the way in. So, yeah.
Gets dark out there,
absolutely. Very dark. Yeah.
Simone?
Simone Sutherland says, sorry, I didn't want to cut Brian off. Sometimes when we sober up, the shit we've been avoiding really hits the fan.
Yeah.
You know, I myself, like, I didn't start having, like, through all of the bad things that I went, and, like, I could fill a book with him, and I kind of did, actually. But I didn't have my first thoughts like that. Like, I didn't have the thoughts of giving up until I was, like, 9 months into it. Like, did you ever go back into those places in your recovery?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been periodic times. It's like life is hard, and it gets
unrelenting.
And also, yeah, and I struggle with depression and living in BC in the wintertime. It rains, 6 months, but yeah, so you get into your head in really rough times. You know, even through recovery, my wife and I had some really rough times. We had partied a couple times in recovery. There's still, life happens and shit happens and we don't know how to deal with it. And that's where I always say, like, you and I talked about this and I said it is, information is good, but community will save your ass.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you remembered to bring that up.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for all these guys I hang out with, there's no way I'd still be here. And there's no way I'd still be married. And my son back east, I finally got in touch with him when he was 24. I met him when he was 28, and him and I got a relationship today. And if it wasn't for my buddies, that wouldn't have happened. That would not have happened. Because he didn't even know about me, my son back east.
What'd they say to you?
So,
what turned that switch in your head?
What had happened is somehow whatever happened with his mom and his stepdad at that time, something happened, but she ended up telling him of something about me. Somehow my mom found out, and anyway, I found out that he knew. So I phoned her, my ex, and asked her, and she said yes. He does know. So I ended up getting a hold of him. But for a long time, he didn't answer me because, and I get it, he didn't answer me because I was out of his life for so long, and I didn't stay in touch, and I didn't do these things. And of course, he's scared, and whatever's going through him, I don't want to say what it is. But I just said, look, I will message you always. And if you ever get curious that you want to meet me or something, you'll know where I'm at. If you don't want to, just let me know. So me and my sponsor set something up because my sponsor went through the same thing. That's why I love Vote Recovery. Someone has gone through what you're going through. So you can get some advice on how to do it or how not to do it.
There's some poor fucker out there.
Yeah. So my sponsor said to me, he said, when you message him, you're not allowed to ask him questions because that puts oh shoot, my battery's dying.
We're just about done.
So he said it puts pressure on him. So I never asked him questions. And for a long, long time, he wouldn't answer me. I kept wanting to give up. My friend said, no, you promised him. That's your amends. And so I just kept messaging. One day I was walking to work and I got a text saying I'm ready. Yeah.
And how did that feel? Was that like, yay? Or was it like shit?
Oh, that was scary as hell.
Yeah.
And I was even meeting him the first few times was really scary. I still get nervous meeting him or going back. So does he, but we talk and it's going all right.
So you're an addictions professional now. Like, let's get into that. You know, you started in service and now you have a business and you're helping lots of people. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, well, I was at first, but then recovery coaching came in. And I was doing coaching long before it actually started. I'm a certified leadership coach also. And so when I started working with people, I started coaching them instead of going down this other route. Because I don't like digging into people's past. It's not who I am. I love looking at what's in front of you and how can we work with you and get you moving forward, because that's the exciting part. And so now I worked in the field for a number of years as a counselor and coach, but now I've opened up a business, and we teach recovery coaching. We work with organizations on how to do recovery coaching in their organization. I coach people, right? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And coaching is just, there's many pathways in recovery. As many people there is, that's how many pathways there are. And we can't be so narrow that coaching is opening up. Okay, what would you like to do? How would you like to try it? I'm here to support you and work with you on what you would like to try. You know, so I love it.
Do you ever take it home with you?
The coaching?
Yeah. Like when you go out and you deal with a hard case, like, does it come home with you, or do you have ways to leave it at work?
No, I have ways to leave it at work. We kind of teach that in the course too, is you need support. You need to be able to, if you have a hard day, like in some hard coaching, and there is sometimes, who do you contact so you can debrief before you get home? Yeah, your family's not carrying it. Yeah.
All right, man. You're starting to glitch out. Your phone's going to die. Tell us where people can find you. What were you going to say? You were going to say something there.
Can I put my headphones in, then I can plug in and stay on?
Well, I think we're just about done anyways. We'll be done in a couple of minutes, so I think we'll be all right. Yeah.
Recovery coaching.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's Optimal Recovery, www.optimalrecoverycoaching.com. So it's .com, yeah. Is that it? www.optimalrecovery.com, yeah.
We hope that's right.
I'm terrible at this. Yeah. I wasn't ready for this part.
Well, you and I met on LinkedIn, so you can also find Brian McGrath on LinkedIn. Search him up. His profile picture is his face that looks like that. So there's communications for you. Brian, is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with tonight? Oh, and by the way, don't log off just yet, you guys. We're gonna look at a clip from next week's guest, and then we're gonna spin the wheel and give away a shirt. So stick around. Don't log off. Brian, is there anything you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Just that, keep moving forward no matter what. And as I always say, information's good. But the community of people you hang out, that's who's going to save your ass every time.
Awesome.
So, yeah, hang out with a good community of people. That's what saved my ass and everybody I've talked to. Right? It's the people around us. Tell me who you're hanging out with, and I'll tell you where you're going to be at in a few years.
Show me your friends. I'll show you your future.
Exactly. Awesome. Exactly.
All right, Brian, that was a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. I was hoping Donna wouldn't be looking to the side scowling. There we go.
I'm not scowling. It's just that it's hard to read things as they're moving.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to cap it. Brian, thanks so much. Take care, my friend. We'll talk again. Hang on right now. We're going to look at next week's guest. Yeah. Here we go.
I started using when I was 14 years old. This is what all the people that I wanted to be like were doing. Drugs, alcohol, and women. I was a hockey player abroad, teaching hockey all across North America. I did some petty crime, things that you do to survive in the lifestyle that I was living. I went out for a hike with this guy, and he said to me, Mike, I was just like you 20 years ago. He said, I was an addict as well, and I was an alcoholic. And I've known this man a long time, and he never, ever told me that. He kept it to himself. I realized that this wasn't the life I wanted to live anymore, because what he is doing is living. What I'm doing is just dying.
Say, this is Hard Knox Talks. All right. Time to spin that wheel. Look at all those names. It looks like she got all the names. Did you get all the names? They can't hear you.
I sure did.
There you go. I was like, she probably won't get all the names. And then Donna's like, I'm going to get all those names. All right, my love, spin that wheel. We are giving away a Hard Knox Talks t-shirt tonight. We also had a guy, Justin Hale, right? Hale, that was his name? Yeah. And who's it going to be? Crystal you say the name.
Studier.
Yes, you want a shirt. If you are watching right now, inbox us at the Hard Knocks page. I was going to tell you about Justin Hale. He messaged us today. He says, man, I watch your shows, but I can never catch it live. And I want to win a shirt. I'll buy one, but it's just not in the cards right now. So if that's you, if you're watching this, but you can't watch it live, inbox us. We'll get you on the wheel. Like, we want to make everyone feel included just because you can't catch us live. Anyways, that's it. Thank you all so much for watching tonight. Thank you all for all of your comments, all of your engagement. That tells the algorithm that we matter, and it pushes us out to more people. So this is not mine. This is not Donna's. This is ours. This is the community. Thank you so much for your support. We will see you next week right here